Natasvalara Samskabhaktisum Hari Purat Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipita Shadahridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasachinandana Ajanalambita Bujjo Kanakavadato Shankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Takshu Vishwambaro Duyabaro Jugadharma Palu Ande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataru Ladini Shakti Sharupaya Gauranga Suridaya Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namostute Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Alabhadra Subhadraya Sri Jagannataya Te Namaha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindadina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Radhe Brindavanadi She Karunamrita Vahine Kripaya Nijapadabjada Shanmahim Pradiyatam Bhaktya Bhina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptasya Kamadi Tarangamadhye Kripamai Tvam Shranam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki Jai, Shri Madhavananda Prabhu ki Jai, Shri Bhaktarupa Prabhu ki Jai, Shri Gaur Govinda Maharaj ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Gaur Praman Hari.
Just talking, let's see what they want.
Okay. So, pranam to all of you. Greetings from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. I'm very happy to be part of this meeting. I'm very grateful to Madhavananda Prabhu for his gentle, kind invitation. I feel really blessed and fortunate to have the association of exalted Vaishnavas like all of you. So, my original plan was to speak about third verse of Siksastaka, which I always feel you never can say enough about that. But as it's usual in the path of love moves in a crooked way, unexpected way. So a loving devotee like Madhavananda Prabhu just open the door if you may have questions and answers. So myself also, I'm willing to open to that if you will prefer that. So I don't know what's the audience decision in this connection.
So in other words, if somebody really eagerly has some kind of personal question or whatever, not personal necessarily, but some question, otherwise Maharaj can just go ahead with Siksastaka 3.
We can have questions.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. And just to let you know, a few devotees are going to probably have to go soon. Brenda Sundari, she has class in Denver. It's morning time in most of these places. Okay. And Jai Gaur couldn't take part tonight. If anybody's curious, he and Bana, it's the first time they ever missed. But they're in some forest area in upstate Michigan for their honeymoon, not the honeymoon, but their anniversary of their wedding. So.
So what do
Go ahead, Mr. Shashi.
Okay. So the idea then we'll share some words about Siksastaka, third verse. Actually, originally the plan was to speak a little bit about Nitya Navadvip, or the possibility of Mahaprabhu's abode in eternity, but some things happen these days that somehow inspired me to speak about this third verse, to begin with Madhavananda's Prabhu invitation to speak, and he really insisted that I was the one to speak and he was the one to hear, although I insisted I want to hear and he should speak. And we really battled hard, and he won. I accept defeat at his feet. So I am too bold to be sitting in his chair next to him. But that boldness I prayed just in the service of the Vaishnavas. He wanted that from me, so I surrendered hopefully to his will. And in the spirit of pleasing the Vaishnavas, I accepted that. So that was a humbling experience in itself. And that was the beginning of my change of plans and speak about the third verse of Siksastaka. then interestingly, also these days I've started to study one biography of Srila Bhaktarupa Puri Maharaj, and you cannot avoid seeing whatever it's connected to his life as very personification of that verse as well. And also to conclude today in my morning therapy, I was with the person who was helping me there. And at the end, he asked me where I was born, and asked him, where are you born? And he told me I'm born in Puri. So I told him, well, you are so fortunate to be born here. And I say, well, actually, it all depends where your heart and mind is. You can be in Puri and be a nonsense also. So he started to give me a seminar on what does it mean, Dhambas, and how the real residence is internal. So that was really humbling, because he was really walking the talk. I mean, he had all the reasons to be, I don't know if proud, but I'm Puri Basi, and he really, in a humble way, said, it's not about that. So everyone can be a resident of the Dham. So all that put together made me think, I will have to speak about the third verse of Siksastaka, basically, which we can never say enough. That's the nature of Sri Harikatha. Some days ago in UK, I was giving some lecture on the glories of Sri Harikatamrita. I know that's a very nice term, favorite for Madhavananda Prabhu also. Katamrita Bindu, only one drop of that can drown the whole universe in an ocean of nectar. So the point is that we made was that to speak Harikatha is in itself glorious, and there are so many things, so many levels, and so many layers of Harikatha. But also one of the sections, if you will, of Harikatha is to speak about Harikatha. That's Harikatha in itself. To speak about the glories of Harikatha, that's a totally separate category, if you will. Very nice one, favorite one of the Vaishnavas. And I thought, also in this case, third verse of Siksastakam, that also deserves a totally separate category that is unfathomable. I mean, we can never exhaust the bottomless ocean of this important thing. I will say the most important thing that Mahaprabhu said, at least for most of us aspiring sadhakas. So I thought that's very, very important. Here we have one message from Gordas. He said, third verse is a wonderful topic, especially with regards to our current situation. We are in lockdown in New Zealand. It just started yesterday after more than a year. Okay. So well, I thought, yeah, we can speak about that. And it's a beautiful challenge to speak about the same thing over and over again and find how you are never speaking the same thing. Actually, some like last Gaur Punim, the previous year, I was chanting and I point why I felt a real necessity of being humble. I really am in need of that, I can tell you. And the more you know me, the more you will realize how much in need I am of humility and all that this verse embodies. So the inspiration came to me to write some form of daily diary for a year, from that Gaur Purnima to the next, and every single day write one page on how this third verse of Siksastaka impacted in that day in particular. So you may say, okay, 365 pages, I don't know, let's see. But I have this conviction that by the grace of Mahaprabhu and the grace of the verse in itself, which we could term as a very personality in itself, that will happen. No? So, and that happened, fortunately. I was able to finish my vow, if you will, and so many nice insights came by the grace of this verse. And it helped me so much in my own bhajan to, on a daily basis, stop everything and say, I will spend some, 10, 15 minutes just focusing on how this particular day can be connected with this unique instruction of Mahaprabhu. So personally, I consider this third verse like, as we speak sometimes about the four regulative principles, I think these are our real four regulative principles. Sunichina, Sagishnuna, Amanina, Amanadena. I mean, the other ones, of course, are four regulative principles for human life, as Srila Prabhupada will say. No? And even if you apply these four regulative principles, the most basic ones, to their utmost degree of application, I will say, they get closer and closer to these other four regulative principles of the third verse of Siksastaka, because the first four regulative principles are not just about do not do this, do not do that, do not do this, no? But be compassionate, be this, be that, be austere, be pure, be truthful. So what does it mean in all its implications? I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. I remember once Srila Puri Maharaj was speaking to some young disciples of him that he heard they had engaged in, unfortunately, in Vaishnava aparat. So he told them, you before, they were Westerners, so he saw it, you before were meat eaters, and you stopped eating meat, which is great. But now you became eaters of Vaishnava meat. So that's even worse than meat eating. I will prefer that you go back to meat eating, but stop offending the Vaishnavas. And if someone like Purma says that would be a thunderbolt right through without, I mean. So he was this point, no? That means that's a worse form of meat eating, if you will. If you want to apply the principle of no meat eating to the utmost degree, it means no Vaishnava aparat. So that's my idea, not just I'm vegetarian, I'm following the principle. If you are really honest and sincere, you want to put as high, not in an erotic way, but as a high sincere as possible, what does the implication of this means, and the implication of this means. So when we raise the bar in this way, we will see these four regulative principles get closer and closer to Sunichina, Saishna, Amanina, Monadina. A certain type of humility and tolerance and respect, modesty, and so on. So I consider, this verse is, I will say, the most important thing the Mahaprabhu mentioned. It's appearing in the Chaitanya Charitamrita not only once, not only twice, but 3 times, interestingly. We generally know it in the very last chapter of the book, Siksastaka prayers, but also it appears when Mahaprabhu is speaking to Suklambar Brahmachari, and also it appears when Mahaprabhu is instructing Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, our Prayojan Tattvacharya, and we may think he's the Prayojan Tattvacharya wanting a private personal instruction from Mahaprabhu, the highest limit of divinity, which will be the instruction. No? And you may wonder. Of course, he gave certain instruction. He started in a very unique way. Gramya katana sunibe gramya vartana kahibe. No? Do not indulge in gossip, basically. We have to begin somewhere. In 2 verses, he will end in Braja Radha Krishna Seva Manasa Karibe. In your mind, serve Radha and Krishna, but 1 verse before he's saying, do not gossip. No, because if you still do that, you cannot expect the other thing. But after finishing all the series of instructions, I have to summarize this. He said to Raghunath Das Goswami, if somehow I have to summarize all my instructions to you, to the Prayojan, the very personification of our goal, I will say the following, and he quotes, in a nutshell, that's my instruction to you. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami very nicely comments, since Mahaprabhu said that to the Prayojan Tattvacharya, to the Acharya who represents the Prem Prayojan goal, it means that without going through this 3rd verse and all that it implies, we cannot get to the goal of life. I mean, you cannot, if you do not embrace the 3rd verse, you cannot speak about Prem, basically. There's no way. There's just like science, like fantasy, basically. So it's a very important verse, basically. Very, very, very important verse. Personally, I always try to use it as a, how to say, this compass, the thing that shows you the directions. Mm-hmm. Whenever I feel that something is missing or something is not in its place, what I'm doing wrong, I immediately try to go to this verse and analyze how I'm failing in embracing this verse and there's always something that I'm failing. Again, in a natural way, but for me, it's a very healthy exercise. When I'm in some level of anxiety or whatever situation is, okay, let's see this verse, what I'm failing in regarding to Sunishina, say, how can I increase my application of this verse? And immediately something comes and I realize, okay. And when I try to apply myself in that connection, immediately feel myself uplifted by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Dev. So this verse interestingly also speaks about as you may know, the stage of Nishta. Srila Thakur Bhaktivinoda mentions that in his different books, Bhajan Rahas and others. And Nishta is a very important stage for us to attain, at least for those who are not in Nishta, who are not beyond Nishta even. Generally, that's the stage to attain for most sadhakas, I would say, who are, let's say, struggling with the ups and downs of Anishtita, Bhajana, Kriya, Anartha, Nivriti, and so on. And of course, this verse speaks about the level of humility. The previous verse of Siksastaka, I would say, is equally important before trying to jump to the third. And in the second verse, Mahaprabhu speaks about his misbehavior. I mean, he doesn't have misbehavior, but he expresses himself as a sadhaka. So he says, Durdaiva midrisham mihajjanina anurar. So my lack of fortune is such that I don't have attraction for Srinam. And of course, the commentators say that lack of fortune means anarthas. Anartha basically means false sense of fortune. Artha means fortune. Anartha means false sense of wealth. We are projecting wealth where it is not, and we run after that. So Mahaprabhu in the second verse speak about his misbehavior, our misbehavior, my misbehavior. And then in the third verse, he speaks about the proper behavior to counteract the second, the misbehavior of the previous verse. So we know the Siksastaka goes in sequence. It's giving us in this way the solution. So of course, then before going to the third verse, it's actually important to embrace the second one. If you try to jump to the third without embracing the second, without a sincere acknowledgement of our misbehavior, our anarthas, we won't be able to jump into the third ones. And that's, of course, in itself a hard pill to swallow. I remember once I was curious about what the dictionary said about humility. I was looking, let's see what the dictionary says, and said the capacity to recognize your own mistakes. It was a simple one, but that's a really foundational idea to embrace. The capacity to recognize your mistakes, your anarthas, again, not over-identifying with them, but also not like skipping them, if you will, looking in some other direction. So the more, or the capacity to allow ourselves to be seen in those terms by Sri Guru, by our guides, which is again not an easy thing. That's one of the most painful things for the conditioned soul, not to recognize one's own mistake or someone else pointing on that. Especially, I would say, because as conditioned souls, generally we are so much afraid of not being loved if someone realizes how imperfect we are. We are in a society where you have to be perfect to be someone, to be loved, to attain anything. So we have this type of even unconscious paranoia that, if someone, I have to see myself. Okay. That's better. One second. Okay, let me do something with your permission. You have the chat here. Okay, I want to active the chat there and put it on my. No problem. So my point is, sometimes we are really concerned if someone gets to know about my anarthas, my mistake. Everyone will know how imperfect I am, and I won't be loved. Because that's the law in this world. I will love you only if you are perfect. If your picture in Instagram is with enough layers of Photoshop and all this type of paranoia. So of course, the only solution to that is when we find unconditional love. What the sadhu, someone like the sadhu, is loving us with mistakes included. The more disastrous we are, the more the causeless mercy will come to us. And this verse is really important for this point, because to deal with causeless mercy is not an easy thing, because causeless mercy means someone is loving me and I do not deserve that. And no matter what I do, I will never deserve that. Now, the love of the sadhu, the love of Sri Guru, the love of Sri Krishna is totally undeserving, no, undeservable. I always like to create new words in English. It's not deserving. And the more we try to deserve that, the more we realize I do not deserve it. So you have to have a very big level of humility to deal for eternity with this reality that I'm receiving something that I will never deserve. Generally, this for the ego is too much. The ego wants to deserve something. And that's how we are thrown back to the realm of justice, of karma. You want to deserve? Okay, go back. Action, reaction, you got what you deserve. But to deal with causeless mercy means I do not deserve and I will never deserve, and that requires, I would say it's more difficult to deal with causeless mercy in that sense than to deal with justice. Because justice is, oh, I deserve that. So the ego is relatively in comfort zone. But I do not deserve that and I will never deserve that. I mean, the ego starts to become agitated. So this verse is a very nice formula to include, to deal with causeless mercy. We have to become humble, tolerant, and so on. So this idea of of Nishta in the third verse, as you may know, Nishta has to do with like determination, I will say. And Nishta for me does not mean just like constantly engaged in stuff, if you will, like multitasking Prabhu or something, no? Like non-stop doing things externally, but not only with like a constant external occupation. Of course, that's nice as well. I'm not against that, but mostly Nishta has to do with constant internal preoccupation, I would say, with the ideal and with the goal to attain. Now in Nishta, you have to start to have a glimpse of the goal to attain, and you become really, I will say, obsessed in a healthy way with making progress. Because Nishta is kind of synonymous with Madhyam Adhikari. And a Madhyam Adhikari is a progressive devotee. No? It's not someone who likes to remain in the comfort zone, but someone who is praying, may Guru and Vaishnava kick me out of the comfort zone. When real learning, again, not in a neurotic sense, no, but I know that real learning will happen outside of the comfort zone. So I pray, some version of Kunti's prayers, give me suffering, take me out of the comfort zone. It may be give me suffering, but I will understand that I need this. So also this stage of Nishta has a lot to do with using our intelligence to understand those things that although may feel uncomfortable, they're healthy and we need them. And of course, deal with them in a balanced way. So Nishta has a lot to do with balancing head and heart. My Guru Maharaj likes to say, you have to use your head to soften your heart. But do not try to soften your heart without using your head. You may be sentimental only, emotionally. But do not just get stuck in the head also. That's a problem. Your head can swallow your whole being. But you have a head, you have to do something. I mean, if there are two parts in the body that we cannot survive without it, there's head and heart, I would say. So we have to know how to connect the two of them. So Nishta is a very crucial stage for this, no? Trying to make progress. Someone in Nishta is really concerned, how can I grow today? How can I grow tomorrow? In a healthy way again, but day after day, this healthy internal preoccupation, engagement with how can I become a progressive devotee, and that implies, of course, to apply the principles of this verse, a certain type of humility, certain type of tolerance, respect, modesty, respect, in the context of kirtan, because there is humility, tolerance, and these virtues outside of Vaishnavism. I mean, there's people who is humble and tolerant, being atheist on some level or another. But here Mahaprabhu is referring to how these virtues express themselves in the context of bhakti. So they take a particular way. No? Kirtaniya sadahari. No? Kirtan is Swarup Siddha Bhakti, Jiva Goswami mentions, like intrinsic devotional activity, and humility, tolerance is Sangha Siddha Bhakti. Virtues that may not be bhakti, but can become bhakti if we associate them with bhakti. So my Guru Maharaj also mentioned this. I like this idea. He says, if you want to enter the spiritual world, remember we mentioned we need this verse to get to prem, which means to enter there. And he says, on the entrance of the spiritual world, on the entrance of Nitya Navadvip, let's say, there is a sign saying what's going on inside there. What's going on in Sriva Sangam, let's say. It says, Kirtaniya Sadahari, perpetually engagement in kirtan. But there is a doormat also, which says Trinadapi Sunishin. So only if you pass through the doormat and realize that, you can look at the gate and enter and access that reality. So So this verse again is very, very important and invites us to be really introspective, to go to the what sometimes our authors call the cave of the heart, I would say. And I know that Madhavananda Prabhu is planning to speak on the verse on art with Chirat, he told me recently, so that's a very nice, important verse. And the last line of that verse is Sadahridaye Kandare Spurato Bhasachinandana. May that lion-like Gaur Hari roar in the cave of my heart. So the point is, the lion may be roaring, but the point is we have to go to the cave. The lion may be roaring, but if we are outside of the cave, we won't realize the roaring. So to go to the cave in this case, I like to take it as become introspective. Go inside. As they say in the US, go within or go without. So unless I enter into the cave of my heart, I won't find a roaring lion there. So Mahaprabhu is roaring louder than ever. And the point is, are we hearing the call or not? Are we hearing the flute call or not? We have to go to the to the cave. So I'm going too long, or
okay. What we usually do, I use a system. We give a good amount of time. We ask everybody for reflections.
Okay.
And everybody takes some time.
Okay.
So, anytime you want, between now and we can go later if you want.
Sure.
Usually we go for another 5 minutes or something.
I have brief words about the parts of the verse and we're going to conclude. So, okay, first line is Trinadapi Sunichena, as we know, to become humbler than a blade of grass. And humility, I like always, there are many definitions of it. I really like the definition of Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He says humility is that thing which is absent where there is an enjoying spirit. He describes it indirectly, if you will. Humility is that thing which is absent when there is a predominance of enjoying a spirit. So when there is enjoying a spirit, in other words, humility is absence of the enjoying spirit, to put it simply. In other words, humility is the acknowledgement, the recognition of who we are, who Krishna is, how we connect to each of us. Actually, since bhakti is such a gift, we have no actual reason to become proud. If we strictly realize the nature of bhakti and how it's a causeless gift, we really don't have any reason to become puffed up of anything, because whatever talent or whatever came to us is because of the grace of Bhakti, Guru, Vaishnava. So strictly speaking, there's no real reason to become proud. There's every reason to become Trinadapi Sunichena, humble. Antarorapi Sagishu. Now, of course, I love Bhaktivinoda Thakur's definition of that. He will translate this tolerance as pure compassion free from envy. So again, we see that it's not just compassion. And of course, the example of the tree further qualifies that. Pure compassion free from envy means the tree is always giving. It's not actually tolerating. The tree is not thinking I have to tolerate. It's giving air, fruit, shadow, even to the person who is cutting the tree. And there's this saying, I don't know where, I think from Persian, saying, be like the sandalwood tree, which is perfuming the axe that is cutting it. When I heard that example first time, I almost fell to the ground. I felt so embarrassed and so far from that line. Perfuming the one who is cutting you. But you're not feeling, I have to tolerate at that point. You are just obsessed in giving, in serving. So that's the standard of tolerance that Mahaprabhu wants to see in us. And of course, amanina, manadena, give respect to others, do not expect respect for yourself, be totally humble. I always like to remember what Vishnu himself said to Brigu when he was kicking him in the chest, trying to establish who was higher, Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva. And Vishnu at the end said, oh Brigu, sorry so much if I was delayed in receiving you properly. I was not a good host. Please forgive my offense. And Brigu was kicking him in the chest. So he realized such a level of offering respect and not expecting respect for himself. He was totally moved, and he realized he's the higher deity, basically. And offering respect, that's a very nice discipline. I always lament that somehow, I don't know if Madhavananda Prabhu knows, for sure there may be some cases, but at the time of the Goswamis it was really established to offer a fixed number of obeisances per day as part of one's sadhana. Fixed number of chanting, fixed number of... Nowadays somehow that got diluted, I imagine there are cases where they retain that, but my point is it's a really nice way, even though you may not do that, but it's a nice way of focusing in this point of offering respects. I read one Christian author who's like leader in the monastery asked him, your only service is to go outside of the church and offering respect to every passerby, person walking outside of the church. That's your only service all the day. He was just doing that. And he then wrote a book about all the insights that came from just doing that. So in this way, sometimes by hearing this verse, we may get discouraged. We may think, oh, Mahaprabhu's dispensation is so nice, but when I heard the third verse, I knew it's impossible for me. But we should not get discouraged like that. It's possible by the grace of Guru and Vaishnavas. Can I share one short story to finish?
Yes,
yeah? Okay. Madhurena Samapayat, some sweet at the end. So it is said that once, maybe you know the story, of course. One devotee once went to a sadhu in Vrindavan, and this devotee wanted to receive initiation from this sadhu, but the sadhu realized this devotee is sincere, but is considerably puffed up. So before giving mantra, he needs to understand some lessons, if you will, so he can really take proper advantage and chant the mantra in the spirit of third verse of Siksastaka. So he asked the devotee, before initiating you, I want you to go and find someone who in all respects is lower than you. By your face, I know that you already know the story. But again, we should never get, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So in brief, maybe some of you did not know, so I have hope. So this devotee went and said, it's so easy to do that. I mean, I think in 5 minutes and back, basically, no? Because he was really puffed up, and he was thinking, I very easily will find that. So first he went to research into the human species, if you will. So he tried hard, and he realized after some time, and summarizing the story, taking out all the emotional ornaments, he realized there is always some human being who has something I do not have. I cannot find one single human being that I am higher than them in all respects. So he thought, okay, let's go to the animal kingdom. So he went and saw, I don't know, the birds flying. I said, I cannot do that. The fish swimming deeply, I cannot do that. I don't have that adhikar, if you will. So they are not lower than me in every respect. They are lower than me in almost every respect, but not in every respect. He was puffed up, but not that much. And then he went, okay, let's go to the plants kingdom, the trees. But he immediately saw a tree and realized, oh, no, I have something. So in this way, 6 days had passed, and the sadhu was really, I mean, not so sadhu yet, but becoming closer and closer to saintliness. I have only 1 day left. If I do not find what my Gurudev said, I won't receive. He won't be my Gurudev, basically. So he went to pass stool on one moment. So he was passing a stool and said, now I got it. This stool is lower than me in every single sense of the word. But immediately he had already, by the Guru's instruction and blessing, he had trained his mind in such a way to find something good, even in something like stool. He kind of quickly, his structure went to, no, but this stool before was prasad, and now became stool because I wanted to satisfy my tongue, and I'm such a greedy person, and the prasad, and eventually he felt himself lower than the stool. But then a worm appeared in the stool. So I got it. The worm in the stool was such an abominable scenario, totally lower than me in every single sense. But immediately he realized, because this worm is making, how do you say in English, compost, eventually. Yeah, humus. So
he's trained in permaculture.
Yeah, basically. So I do not. He had that intense seminary of permaculture. Eventually, we can go to permaculture, but before we have to go to this type of permaculture, lower than the worm, the stool. And then he realized, no, what Krishna Das Kaviraj say, Jagai Madai Haitimunisi Papishta Purishira Kita Haitimunisi Lagista. He says, I'm lower than the worm, the stool. And one may think that's exaggerated, but this devotee got that insight. So he went to his guru just on time and say, I couldn't find anyone, basically. I'm such a lowly guy. So he was crying and crying. So his guru, he thought, okay, I won't be initiated then. He thought like this because I'm so low and I failed to the test. But he didn't understand, oh, you really approved the test. So his guru was so happy and he gave an incentive immediately. So there is hope for us. There is hope for us to someday reach this realization of third verse of Siksastaka, again, in a healthy way, in a sustainable way. I've seen devotees go neurotic in the name of humility. So Thomas Merton once said, humility is a virtue, not a neurosis. So we should deal with that in a user-friendly way, but we should deal with that. And that's a must for all sadhaka. So some words I want to share with you. Thank you so much, Madhavananda Prabhu, and all the devotees here for your attention, all the devotees online connected. I don't know now, thoughts, questions?
Yeah, we can all have some reflections. Maybe I'll go ahead and start. It's kind of appropriate. It was just reminding me that sometimes I think Brajabani will appreciate this. She always makes this point, maybe a little Purushottam Prabhu, that sometimes people take advantage of you if you're humble. So then some devotees, they say, you can be humble with some people, but with some other people, you can't really be humble with them. But I wouldn't agree with that. Mahaprabhu is not saying that. There's no commentators who say like that. It reminds me of a story. Once my Guru Maharaj was in Bhubaneswar, and someone came to see him who was actually from Jagannath Puri. He was working with ISKCON, a little outside of ISKCON actually, but he was a conniving kind of person. And he came and he was trying to trick my Guru Maharaj. And Guru Maharaj later commented to me, he said, he thinks that because I'm simple, then he can take advantage of me. And Guru Maharaj immediately saw through that. And it reminds me, if we say like that we have to be critical, we have to be analytical and see who we're talking to before we were respectful, then we're going to have problems with Braj. Because the Brijbasis were respectful to Putana. The Brijbasis were respectful to Vatsasura. The Brijbasis were respectful to so many different demons who came, Pralambasura and Shankachuda. They looked like demons, but they were respectful to them. So what were they doing? But the point is that they were taking shelter of Krishna. And because they were so simple that, oh, this is a devotee, they're acting like a devotee. And then Krishna protected them. So we don't have to worry. We just be respectful to everyone. We follow that principle. And if we need to be protected, then Krishna will come in, just like Jad Bharat, they were going to cut off his head. And Kali Mata stood up and said, no. And she cut off all the Gunda's heads. So we'll always be protected. Anyway, thank you very much, Maharaj. I really appreciate that. Anybody else who's here?
What if it's not obvious that
this is Bhaktarupa Prabhu.
What if it's not obvious that he's protecting you? What if something you actually get taken advantage of?
Yeah. Well, what if it seems like we're just completely lost and he's not coming here to help me at all? But then I think that's a test from Krishna. How much faith do we have that Krishna will really, truly protect me? Even if I don't see him, if it doesn't seem like it.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately, but eventually.
Say that when Prabhupada was being disrobed, and she called with one name, with one hand, Govinda. Govinda did not appear. He was waiting the second hand. She was, with the other hand, she was still taking her sari, like depending on her half, if you will. And then when she put the two hands, unlimited sari came there.
I was thinking, Maharaj, how this is such an important principle at this time also, to see Krishna's hand in everything. And I've observed today a very sad phenomena that many of the stout warriors, let's call them, Srila Prabhupada, who were going and preaching and things, now it seems that they're no longer seeing Krishna's hand. Rather, they're seeing some false government conspiracy or this or that, and they're wanting to protest against that. And it makes me very sad. Instead of carrying the message that Krishna is behind everything and that we should see this is the COVID thing as an example, is a result of collective karma. But instead of seeing that and preaching our philosophy, instead we're lowering the bar to something mundane and blaming, Mr. Gates or this or that. And that's the result when we don't see Krishna in everything. Bhayam vitya binivetsa sashat. When we see some duality, something separate from Krishna, then we're afraid. It's such an important thing, such a simple thing. And it makes me very unhappy too, because people really need shelter right now. And who are they going to get shelter from? The people they're supposed to get shelter from now, they're saying, you know, there's a conspiracy and Mr. Gates did this and this and this. And oh, I thought there was shelter here. There's no shelter. It's a very, very sad thing. Anybody else to share? On a pining?
Thank you so much for this. It was really amazing to hear your experience with this verse, and really appreciate how you dedicated 1 year to, you know, think about that verse in your life. It's really powerful. I really like your way of thinking. Like, if you feel something wrong, you coming back to that verse and thinking, am I embracing that verse or not in my service, in my bhajan? This is really beautiful. And also, I didn't hear before that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati called humility, like something which is absent when there is a mood of enjoyment. I didn't hear that before. That's really interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was gonna comment. I promise I won't extend. I know that I have fame of.
Yeah,
But
let's have some
thank you
discussion.
for your appreciation. And yeah, I was thinking what you were saying about the embracing the verse, and I think that every single verse from Shastra, especially if we commit to memory some verse, is not just to commit to memory, but to walk the talk and take that in our practice. Especially for me, this third verse is very practical in that sense. Not only, as I mentioned, but also in my relationships with others, because it's easier, relatively easy, in one sense only, to apply this verse while chanting, I don't know, japa in your bhajan kutir and nobody there is disturbing you. But when you wake up from your bhajan and start to deal with everyone, then you have to walk the talk. Of course, you also have to walk the talk being seated and trying to go deep in that verse, but a very important way for me is in relationship with others. It's just a crucial, I mean, that's for me the golden standard of Vaishnava etiquette. If you embrace this verse, you don't have to concern, if you will, about Vaishnava etiquette as a way of saying, in the sense that all the gist of Vaishnava etiquette is how to deal with each other is present there,
Yeah,
basically.
thank you so much. It's really wonderful that sometimes I can market myself. I mean, like, in theory, like, we understand so nicely, like we can learn all these verses, but actually when we come into the practice, and especially with the Vaishnavas, we can see that I don't know that. Although I was thinking I know that, I actually don't. Sorry.
I also really appreciated this sharing of yours about dedicating 1 year of meditating on this verse daily. That was very powerful for me. And I liked what you mentioned about being eternally undeserving of the mercy that we are getting, and how that's even harder on the ego than yeah. And it reminded me, Damodar Maharaj often speaks about this, how the bigger the distance is between the mercy which flows down, it doesn't flow up. So if we are down there and keeping ourselves in a low position, then we can receive it. And how the bigger the distance is, the more the mercy can come, and the stronger mercy we get. It just kind of reminded me what you said. Thank you. Really, it was very.
Was the one who described Madhavananda as he was given the highest thing even to the lower.
Yeah.
So
Everyone used to say your only qualification is your disqualification.
that sounds nice and romantic, if you will, but to walk the talk is a bitter pill to swallow, no?
First of all, you have to have the second verse of Siksastaka.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to own our faults. Live with them. So let's hear some of the other devotees. Why don't we start with Brinda Sundari, since I know you have to go soon. Anything you've gotten from tonight? You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Prabhu. I was just thinking about what you're saying about the causeless mercy, undeserving or deserving of love. And then the difference between that and being on the platform of karma or the justice system, and the relationship between Krishna and his causeless mercy and Krishna's justice system, that oftentimes I find in myself and in others that we get stuck when we want justice, because we need more faith to have to trust, like we're saying about humility, that if we're humble, then we may get cheated or exploited. But that's not true. Krishna will protect us. At the same time, that takes a certain amount of faith. And so then we tend to go into this level of justice, of like wanting justice, when I think that there's something there that where we forget the relationship that Krishna has with his justice system of karma, and that it's being taken care of. I don't think I'm quite 100% clear on what I'm even asking, but I just feel there's something there, that relationship, because we tend to get stuck in like, we want justice, instead of Krishna has a perfect justice system on different levels.
Yeah, that's quite applicable, as Madhavananda Prabhu said, in nowadays times, when one may see so many of the world dynamics as this shouldn't be happening, or this is to blame, here's to blame. And I sometimes see devotees that they do not even, with all respect, of course, as part of their learning process, but they are not even understanding the principle of justice. So what to speak of understanding the principle of grace? Because if you say we want justice, it means you perceive there is some injustice. But if you perceive injustice, it means karma is failing. And we know that karma is perfect justice. There, strictly speaking, there is no injustice. Although I know this sounds, again, another heavy pill to swallow. Sorry for giving you so many pills to swallow. But strictly speaking, the only injustice that exists is mercy. Because mercy is unjust. It's not just in the good sense of the term. Injustice is not, we turn to think it bad, but divine injustice. Because I do not deserve that, still is coming. That's unjust. It's not just. It's beyond that. But in the other sense, in the negative sense, there is no injustice actually, because it means at one point karma failed. At one point, Krishna, as Paramatma, as the supervisor of the universe, fall asleep, took a nap, and everything got into chaos or whatever. But we know it's not true. So my point is, sometimes we even find ourselves failing to embrace, to trust the principle of karma. So if we are not able to trust in that, what to speak of trusting and embracing causeless grace, which is a much.
So the Agyata Sukriti is not the cause of the mercy.
No.
Agyata Sukriti
Agyata Sukriti is mercy. Because
it's something you do. You do something unknowingly, and you get some. So you get some sukriti, but that's not the, and therefore you get some mercy. Yes. That's one thing that we hear, but it's not actually cause. The Agyata Sukriti is not actually the cause of getting the mercy.
No. Mercy comes from mercy. I mean, Agyata Sukriti is Agyata Sukriti because on the other side there is a merciful person, basically. Yes. If there is no merciful person, you can do the same thing and there's no Agyata Sukriti. There is karma or who knows what. But in front of you have a sadhu or something, that creates the Agyata Sukriti dynamics equation. So again, Agyata Sukriti comes because of the merciful person in front of you, that you may not even know there is what's mercy and what's in front of you, but mercy is the cause of mercy. Bhakti is the cause of bhakti. Mercy is the cause of mercy, I would say.
Just shortly, for example, if the person just unknowingly, like doing like parikrama around the temple, but he doesn't know that, like, and there is no like visual person behind that. How there is some sadhu behind that? So you said that there is always somebody, not just Agyata Sukriti itself. But let's say that, for example, I just unknowingly going around the temple. So, and how is there is some person behind that?
Krishna is a person, and he's Karuna Sindhu and an ocean of mercy.
There's some devotee who built that temple.
Yeah, yes, there's always some good reason to.
Brinda Sundari's comment, you reminded me of something that some of you may have heard me speak about before, that we have a choice in life who we're going to work for. Do you want to work for IBM, or do you want to work for Macintosh? What company do you want to work for? And broadly speaking, there's two companies we can work for. We can work for Yamaraj and Chitragupta in the system of justice, and everything has to be this particular way. And in that scenario, generally, as is being said, people don't have, and this is what I think I see in Brinda Sundari's comment, is that there's a lack of faith in that the people who just want justice, they don't really have faith that there's some person behind. So we can work for Chitragupta and Yamaraj and make sure that everybody gets what they deserve, man. Or we can work for Nityananda Prabhu. And in the court of Nityananda Prabhu, he's a doshadarshi. He doesn't see anybody's fault. And the thing that we need to remember, whichever court you decide to work in, the court of Nityananda Prabhu, the court of Yamaraj, you're also going to be tried. And in the court of Yamaraj, everything's very, very strict and there's no mercy. But in the court of Nityananda Prabhu, there's some hope. Krishna, can you have something?
About this justice and finding justice. Once one disciple of Srila Prabhupada told me, if you want justice, you can have it. Next life. Do you want to stay here for that? Do you want to go to Krishna? It's the same point. But it's just...
Nice. Is that okay, Brinda Sundari? You satisfied?
Yeah, I also think that for someone who's working in administrative positions, that it's a very fine balance.
Yeah, that's fine.
To like maintain standards or rules, principles. Yeah.
It's a good point. I let me reflect a little on that. Someone may say that, well, anyway, Krishna's going to take care of everything. My godbrother Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu is a president and the guru of Acharya and Gadai Giri. And he has this policy, Gopal is going to take care of everything. And sometimes you have someone in the ashram who's completely raving mad. He's had some people that were just completely crazy, and he won't kick them out. He said, anyway, Gopal will take care of everything. And there's a series of dramas, and then finally the person ends up leaving, and Gopal takes care of it. And he's really detached, and the devotees who are there with him, they have strong faith in him, so they can digest that. But I've seen that if a manager says something like that, well, anyway, Yamaraj is going to take care, Karma is going to take care, Krishna's taking care of this person, we don't have to worry about it, then they may lose faith in the manager because they have more faith in justice. And they say, well, this child was molested and you better do something about it right now. This is a great crime. And then they become really angry with you. So your point's a good point. If you're a manager, you have to respect that. Because if you don't respect their lack of faith, if you don't respect that, then they'll end up going away and saying, yet these people, they're not prosecuting the criminals and this and that. But it's a very difficult thing because really the people who are following his path of justice, they're never going to be satisfied with the punishment which is given to them in this world, unless maybe you kill them or something like that, the criminal.
And I will add, I mentioned this with the first episode with Namrasa, but sometimes when we expect others to be punished, also we have to be introspective and ask ourselves, why do I want that? Do I really want that for the person to be redeemed eventually? Because karma is about education, not chastisement only. And sometimes we find, I'm not really being compassionate when expecting that from the other. I'm not committing to the welfare of that. I just want the other to suffer, but that's not even karma. That's cruelty.
And that's exactly the point that Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes when he explains when someone's fault can be pointed out. And he quotes that the guru can point out someone's fault for the sake of the disciples to learn, but the qualification is that it has to be a heart free of envy when you do that.
Yeah, you have to have faith in that person. Therefore, the ninth offense of the holy name, Ashadadani Vimukhi Pushindati, is Chokpadesha Sivanama Parada. You can't speak to someone who doesn't have faith in you. So you may be a manager. That's a very difficult thing. The natural system for being a manager in a spiritual society is that everybody has absolute faith in that manager, like my godbrother Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu. Basically, everybody in Gadagiri, they have strong faith in him. And it's so much easier for him to manage things. But I don't think it's like that in Denver. It's not like that in Mayapur, Vrindavan. It's not like that in Bhubaneswar. You've got so many people who just accept the manager's, the authority, but they don't really have strong faith in that person. It's very difficult. So I've commented sometimes in the case of Dave Madhav Prabhu, when we were in Ypsilanti last time, I told everybody there that, look, be nice to him. If you don't have faith in him, you don't have to. If you don't agree with him about something, but then go somewhere else. Follow your heart, go to someone who's a manager that you have faith in and that you can work under. Otherwise, it's just going to be hellish. It's going to be hellish for you, and it's going to be hellish for him. This is why it's so difficult to be a manager. I was a temple president in Seattle for some time, and I wasn't there because everybody had faith in me. It was just I was the only one who would do it.
I was temple president in Buenos Aires for 10 years, and
Buenos Aires.
I can empathize with you and Madhavananda. So you are not alone in this. Once my Guru Maharaj will say, if you don't agree with the manager, okay, go somewhere else. First option, become a manager yourself. Second option, or third option, shut up. And let the person, shut up and let the person do the thing, because if not, it's not constructive. Whatever criticism you are criticizing, it has to be constructive. If not, it's apparat, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that was Prabhupada's system. It used to be in ISKCON, if you've been a devotee for 2 weeks, they say, now you're a senior devotee. You've been in the temple for 2 weeks. You should go open your own center. Yeah. And they would go and open their own center. And it was beautiful. And you could run it according to your spirit. So devotees, they can go to Fort Collins, or they can go to Boulder, this or that, if they don't, Colorado Springs, if they don't like what's going on in Denver, it's fine. Do something better, isn't it? Is that okay, Brenda Sundari?
Yeah, thank you. That's fun conversation, discussion.
Yeah, it's not easy being a manager. So does anybody else have to leave early? Braja Banita, you okay? Lila Purushottambu's got his hand raised.
Okay. I'm okay. I want to say a few words because
I'll
I'm
bet
waiting
this is
from
a
last.
topic close to your heart. Can you show
No, it's
yourself
not
on the
topic
screen
close to
also?
me. It's a regular topic close to everyone, not
I know.
especially for me. I have few questions from last meeting that I still keep with me, so I
Okay.
want to ask them if I may.
Sure.
First of all, it's really touched me, and it's was important for me to hear that the best temple is our own heart, and it was really, for me, I think it's the best thing that I hear for last year, that the best temple, it's my own heart, and this is real something that I can relate to. And about another one I forget, but about today, I want to tell you that the things that you are talking about, like you say, conspiracy and Bill Gates, and everything comes from, and everything comes from Krishna. I don't see any contradiction in this. It still can come from Krishna, and it still can come in all those persons. We just don't see the whole plan, together. We don't see the whole picture, but there is no contradiction in my point of view. That's what I wanted to say also. And about katha that Maharaj gave, I like what Krishna Kun said, that actually no one of us deserve for mercy. And this is very important thing that I keep for myself, that actually no one for us deserve for the mercy that we have. And this is the most important thing, actually. And this is something that we can grow up from. So, thank you.
I have a reflection back on what you just said, that ultimately we want to make a temple in our heart. And sometimes I know you feel discouraged when you see that it's the devotees are not so much interested in making temples in their heart, rather they just want to make a big building and stick everybody in there and just tell everybody what to do in kind of a general way, and it feels very impersonal. But rather than seeing those individuals, I think we should see Gurudev and we should see Srila Prabhupada. And they understood that there's so many people who are not ready to build a temple in their heart, and they just want some social program. They just want to be accepted and have some friends. They're pious enough to have that desire and to want to chant Hare Krishna with other people so that we build a temple for them. But in what sense, it's not for them, but it's for our Gurudev who wants to help them. And I want to assist our Gurudev. So I can do that, but to assist him means that I have to see his purpose and his desire, which is ultimately that everybody make a temple in their heart. And I try to serve that purpose and not get caught up in politics and external things, but seeing the internal purpose behind it. Does that resonate with you at all, Vijayanita?
Not really, but I'm ready to think about it.
Appreciate her sincerity.
Vijayanita, you know, for a lot of devotees, I find, and there's a few in this session today, there's a lot of devotees who have a problem. They want to practice bhakti, they want to chant the names of the Lord, they want to advance, but they have a hard time fitting in with an institution. And that's not just ISKCON, but that's also so many different Gaudiya Math branches and even Babaji groups and things. It's always a difficult thing. So my point is, we have to, if we're going to work with a group of people, we should see the purpose of that group. And the purpose is not what we see externally. Its purpose is our Gurudev's heart. Vijayanita?
Can I say a few words also about what you say? I just wanted to tell you from what I'm seeing around, and I don't know how it's related to bhakti. I don't know how institutions relate to bhakti. I don't see this connection.
Well, I know you sent me some personal messages today, and I can understand from your comments that you feel something very heavy on your heart right now because you saw such a big institutional kind of thing. And I can relate to that because sometimes I go to a big group of people and it just makes me feel a bit depressed. And I have to withdraw. But where do we withdraw? Mars is speaking about the cave of the heart. So that cave of the heart, we're not alone in that cave. We don't want to be alone. We want to be with Gurudev. We want to be in his cave. So try to understand his purpose and his desire and why he's doing it with all those persons. Can I tell a quick story? I remember, I think 2 years ago, I was in Megalinovka with Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, and we were doing a retreat there. And it was a little hard for me, to tell you the truth, because I don't speak Russian, and I didn't know most of the devotees. I knew a lot of devotees, and they accept me, and I had some kind of position with them. But I still kind of felt alone in the crowd. I felt kind of lonely, even though I was with so many people there. And then at one point, there was a Rath Yatra. Were you there that year, Vijayanita? Yeah, there was a Rath Yatra. Anupani was there also.
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah. So I'm one of the speakers. They gave me, I'm the big person and whatever. But I remember just walking by myself in the Rath Yatra, and although there's so many people and everybody's so happy and they got their kids and it's a big party, and I just felt so lonely. I just felt really, because nobody could understand me and I didn't really fit in, and I just didn't really, to be really honest with you, don't mind me saying this, but I wasn't part of the party. I just wasn't there to have a good social time. And I was kind of, and some of the devotees even came up and they were a little concerned. Are you okay? You know, is everything all right? And, yeah, I'm all right. And then later I was speaking with Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, and I expressed some of my feelings to him. And immediately he understood. And immediately he kind of reciprocated and showed me how he was also feeling a little distant, a little separate from the big group. But then in the next moment, someone came to him and said, "Oh, Maharaj, here's my new baby," or here's this thing or that. And then Maharaj just clicked into another dimension. and immediately started being with them. And I appreciated at that point that he's so much better than me. He's so much deeper than me. I'm in my little shallow box, and that's all that I can appreciate. But he can come out of that box, and he has the power to be with so many people and bring them into something deeper. And I really, really appreciated that about him. I've seen that with a number of devotees like Radhanath Maharaj and Naranjan Maharaj and others. I don't have that ability. I can work with a few small people, but it's really hard when you get in a big group. Krishna Kun has some reflections.
I think it's closely connected. When Niranjan Maharaj hears from devotees who are trying to help others, that they feel discouraged because there is no reciprocation from the devotees they are counseling or whatever, then this is his standard answer is, you are not doing it for them, you are doing it for Guru and Krishna. So how can you be dissatisfied if your motivation is correct?
Rajabanati, you don't look convinced.
Usually Krishna couldn't know how convinced me.
Okay. You're satisfied at some point though? It's okay
Yes,
also. You know, maybe we should feel alone in the crowd sometimes. Maybe that's healthy for our bhakti. Maybe there's something wrong with us when we start feeling like, yeah, I'm part of the group. How can you be part of the group? I'm always an individual. It's healthy to feel alone in the crowd. Good for you. But just don't start hating them. Don't start looking down on them. Understand there's a purpose for it. And every sangha, every single sangha I've found, I found frustrating in some ways because it doesn't deeply acknowledge the individuality of each person. It's not fully satisfying. And that's why we have to follow Mahaprabhu's Gambhira program. He's here in Puri for Rath Yatra with 100,000 devotees, but then he goes back to the Gambhira and it's with a very small, intimate group. We need to have both. I often speak about that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brajabanita. I'm sorry, we're taking so much time. I saw that Leela Purushottam Prabhu had his hand up. He always has some good comment.
I will just, I will have to leave in a few minutes, actually. I'm so happy how the whole discussion develops. It uncovers so many deep points, deep things. I noted down few things that I really liked on Maharaja's speech, like this connection of 4 principles of the 3rd verse and regulations that with the vivid example of Puri Maharaja's warning of meat eating, that was like enough to create a samskar.
Sometimes we need this type of strong examples to create some samskar. So
yeah, it served its purpose. Thank you. And yeah, as I say, I would just repeat the points. I really liked how the discussion went on, but then I have one question regarding that verse, and the Krishnadas Kaviraja's statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that we should string it on the thread and wear it around our neck. So I would like to hear both of your insights. Like, is that what we are doing now, just to deeply contemplate, be introspective about the verse, or is there another level of understanding this figure, so to say, figurative instruction from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami?
Go first.
yeah, I always like that that analogy he gave. I always kind of thought like Srinam is like flowers, and this verse is like this thread that will allow us to make a beautiful garland and to make the flowers sustainable, if you will. Because if without the thread, the flowers all fall. So this 3rd verse makes our chanting, our practice sustainable. It's not only the chanting, again, it's our lifestyle, because as I mentioned, not I will apply this verse when I'm chanting only. Ideally, we should be chanting every moment. So ideally, we should be applying this verse at every moment. So So personally, yeah, I think that this beautiful analogy has to do, I always take it also, the Kantimala for me is like also one meaning is first line, second line, third line, and a reminder there on my neck. So whatever happens through my throat is blessed by the third verse. And I agree with your point that trying to remain introspective about the different possibilities of this verse in our life, because I wouldn't say that we are not following the verse or we are following the verse. There are so many degrees of that. It's so much gray in between the black and white. So what's the layer for today of this verse, if you will? No, for me, this writing every day helped me in that sense. No, okay, today this layer of verse, tomorrow this new layer. No, yesterday's perfection is today's imperfection, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur said. No, like this, and I finished the whole year, and I can tell you I was thinking I have to repeat this next year because it's, you get a taste for that. That's interesting thing. You get a taste for that verse that sometimes for some is like, thank you so much, but some Aishwarya, some awe and reverence, some distance. So I will agree with your point that trying to contemplate on a daily basis how, yeah, which form this verse will take today, and tomorrow we will speak tomorrow, but today. What's the form of this verse in any given situation? No? Whatever unexpected situation that is coming right now, as I mentioned, at least personally, it helps me to a lot to think, okay, in which form I can embrace this verse better in this particular situation. And there's always some new answer to that. So that means there's always some new version of this verse, if you will. No?
Yeah. I also like the same point that there's different layers. And one layer of that verse is you can put it on, like I can put on this prasadam mala. But when we say you should always wear it, I've seen, I remember one devotee who had tattooed the tilak marks. And I've seen a few devotees even who tattooed Turnadapi Sanichina around their neck. So that's another layer. But of course the tattoo wears off after some years also. And the tattoo is only on your skin. So then there's another layer beyond that, which brings us to Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And Sanatana Goswami describes an intimate relationship between prema and humility. And he says they're both in cause and effect. It's like it's a circular kind of thing. And in one sense that even if you're not humble, we spoke about this before, if I bow down to all the saints, some of them are going to bless me. Even if my humility is false, I'm going to get some benefit from that. But on the other hand, when we actually, and from that blessing, you may get prema. But the symptom of having prema is that you're humble. And so that the gopis of Braj, they're wearing that verse constantly. So in that sense, I would say that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami may be indicating a number of different layers, and one of them being the Gopi Manjaris, and how always wearing that verse means their behavior with prema. Is that okay?
I'm so happy because that was exactly the place where my mind was tending to go, like especially hearing from you explanation of I'm sorry. Hearing from you the explanation of prema nama mala concept, how it was explained by Gorgovinda Maharaj. So that was I was immediately, my thought went like, okay, is that thread of Trinat Apisunichana, that prema, that you can string the nam on it, and then it. So I'm happy. Thank you both for your answers. It was. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's see. We should go a little faster. Natalia has her hand up. No, it's okay. I'm the one who's speaking too much, and we should have more of Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Natalia, you okay? You back in Estonia now?
Hare Krishna. Yes, I'm in Estonia. Okay. Thank you very much for this katha and discussion. For me, I like this exercise, of course, writing down all the impressions, or connecting to one shloka, and actually, but I like it, the motive also. I had the need for humility. Maharaj said I had a need for humility. So
It is like a key from my childhood. If I have a need for something, I have to focus it, because around me in this world, there is this like plenty. If I focus on it, on humility, I can see it everywhere. So if I'm in need for justice or mercy, I can focus on it, and I can see it, and beauty. And actually, yesterday I was totally in loss, and I was thinking, I had a situation, and I was thinking, how is it possible to focus on my service, but at the same time to notice and respect and support everybody like around? And how is it possible in spiritual world? How is it possible for pure devotees? How to learn it, and how to go? Okay, if I want to offer flowers to my deities, uh, the best if I can raise them myself, but if I cannot, I can buy them. If I cannot, I will go and pick them up, but then I have to think that maybe the place where I'm picking these flowers is a path of somebody of walking and jogging, and they want to see those flowers there, and it is not respecting their interest, their sense of beauty. If my house is ugly from outside, it is not respecting also the sense of beauty of others. And there are so many things, and how to be like concentrating on service and to respect everybody around. And but during this discussion, I had so many examples that I want to listen it again and write down. Really.
We were commenting on this the other day, that one person here in Pori told me we should don't pick all the flowers. Leave a few flowers for the bumblebees and for the butterflies, because they're all so important. And like that, we shouldn't just think everything is for me. I mean, and then we collect this for my so-called service, and deny other people their service. The bumblebees are also doing service, even though they're very humble. Okay. Thank you very much, Natalia. I just saw Ujjwala Resig is here. Do you, I know you have to, she's at work right now. She's a doctor.
She wrote in our Hare Krishna chat that she joined like 20 minutes ago only.
Uh-huh. Okay, I don't know if you have any reflections you want to share with us, Ujjwala Resig. I can't read these things very good over here. There's a whole bunch. Maybe you want to address these, Maharaj? Gora, Prabhu?
Gora, the first one I read it before. The second says, I'm interested to hear about the possibility of having the same benefit from online sangha as there is from face-to-face sangha. What is the difference, or what is the similarity?
Well, the fact that you're asking that question means there's a difference. The fact that you're asking that question means you're not fully satisfied, right? But Fakir Mambo used to tell us, and my grandmother said a similar thing too, that the tapes can help us to remember what that physical association's like. And I think the Zoom programs also, we're not satisfied because we want to sit down and take prasadam together. We want to do kirtan together. We want to give hugs and touch devotees and things. But when we have a sangha like this, then it gives us some desire to go further in that way. And ultimately too, parasparano katanam pavanam bhagavadyasa, we can associate by having discussions and back and forth. So today was a very nice session by having Maharaj's Association, Bhaktarupa Prabhu, and so many devotees sharing different thoughts. And by sharing those thoughts with each other, we're associating in some way, a deeper way. Sometimes I go to a big program in some temple and there's 1,000 devotees or more, and you feel lonely. You don't feel like you're really associating very deeply with people. So that kind of association happens when there's paraspara, there's some back and forth discussion. Anything you want to add to that, Maharaj?
I agree with Madhavananda Prabhu say for sure. I mean, and I know that, yeah, that's, I would say, one of the blessings of COVID, if you will, in the sense that also but not allowing too much physical presence that we want at the same time. At the same time, it of course invites us to introspection, because quarantine is, Mahaprabhu was in quarantine and Gambhira, if you will. So it invites us to enter the cave of the heart and from there associate with each other as we are doing. And of course, we may like to meet in person, but if the circumstance is not possible, there's no sense to get discouraged or something. I mean, whenever it's possible, we will do that. But if it's not possible, we will just try to increase our longing when that day will be mine, if you will. No, like when I know that Madhavananda Prabhu said regarding Jagannath here, is he Jagannath or Hindunath or Isanath? And actually, there's an arrangement for us Westerners to cultivate a mode of separation and longing, and that's the entry point for eventual union. So I will say this type of circumstance also invite us to appreciate in some distance, in a substantial way, what we receive, to absorb in remembrance of what we already experienced, and hopefully whenever we get back together, all the whole thing became upgraded, if you will, and our meeting will be upgraded. Union, separation, that's the dynamics, if you will, the purpose of one nourishing the other, no? So trying to see some purpose in that, not just like lamenting and getting discouraged or blaming the conspiracy people. We're trying to take advantage of that. Yeah,
it's beautiful. I hope that helps, Gora. And Gora made some other comment. Gurjabani to the Ujjwal Rasiga has commented, I'm so relieved and fortunate that I could at least join today, still unable to turn on audio or video. She's a doctor in a hospital there. And she's commenting, you're going to be tried in Nityananda Prabhu's court too? I have to hear the whole recording. Oh, okay, I'll let you go to the whole recording. The best temple in our heart, in the light of Sadhu and Shastra, where mercy and love reign supreme. Very nice, is our heart. I read, do you have any reflections you want to share with us tonight? It's on in the morning.
Yes, I can appreciate the whole katha. It was very amazing. Nice to have Maharaj's association. But I guess one point that wasn't made, that Maharaj was, giving us at the end, is that we should, our tolerance should, we should aspire to be like the sandalwood tree, which perfumes the axe that cuts it down. Like,
So what happened with that point? He liked that, or he didn't?
Yeah,
understand?
he liked that point
okay,
very
okay,
much.
okay. Yeah, again, we have to walk the talk, and there may be a path to that, and we should, do not get discouraged. We cannot imitate Anautam Bhakta, if you will, and the humility of the Brajavasis, as Madhavananda Prabhu said, but we can feel moved and inspired to have that as our ideal and establish where they are, where we are, and what's like the GPS, no? Where I want to go, where I am, and only then the path reveals, if you will.
That's why GPS is a guru for our system. Okay. So, Bhaktarupa, you have anything else you want to add? Anybody? Okay. So why don't we go ahead and stop there? Maharaj, thank you so much. It's really good. This is what we want to try to have. We want to have discussions with devotees that are very personal and intimate. And I hope I'll really get a chance to have some more private talks with Maharaj before he goes tomorrow morning. Maybe you'll be here for another week. We can get some more sangha too. Hopefully. All right. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Vanchakalpa Kripa Sindhu Bheva
Kripa Sindhu Bheva Patitanam
Vaishnava Namo Namaha Nanda Kori Vaishnava Binda ki jai.